Well, this is part of the administration's update on its ongoing regulations. The National Association of Manufacturers talking about that regulation, Charles. This is an industry trade group, by the way. It opposes these new ozone standards, claims that the forthcoming regulations on ozone specifically will cut economic growth by $270 billion a year, including compliance costs of $2.2 trillion from the years 2017 to 2040.
It is being called by one side of the debate exactly what a president must do in order to clean up the environmental mess we're currently in. But another side calls it nothing more than a power grab and little of reality in what the country can honestly accomplish or need. Time to place your bets and decide what you really want, cleaner air or more jobs. Let's welcome to MidPoint, Chairman of Regulatory and Scientific Affairs for the American Petroleum Institute, Howard Feldman joins us today on the show. Howard, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Howard, is it as simple as that? Because every time we hear this, and I do want to point out that today's the deadline to submit comments to the EPA concerning this proposed clean energy plan that aims to reduce carbon emissions from the coal-fired plants. I want to just make that clear. Today's the deadline. But have we reached the point where Americans are going to have to make that choice? Either you want cheap gas and cheap fuel or you want clean air. You can't have both.
Well, we've made a lot of progress over the last few decades to clean up the air. It's been a slow, steady progress, but we need to let the Clean Air Act work as it's been designed, and we don't need to change these standards right now.
Is that just it, that once again we're looking at new standards, when if you look, the last standards, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, they were 2008 standards. They are not all actually in place yet, are they?
Right, you're correct. The irony is that one of the rules to implement the 2008 standards is still being reviewed by the White House. So it still hasn't even been released. So our position is that now is not the right time to move the goalposts here while we're trying to still work and meet the 2008 standards. We think as a society, the best policy is to first implement the 2008 standards, get the gains that are already embedded in those standards and a whole host of other EPA rules that are on the books already, and then first consider whether you need to tighten these. There's no compelling...
No,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, is this just a legacy grab then by the White House? Because some people call it a power grab of the president. What you're saying and other people, he wants to be the green president and wants that to sit on his resume for the rest of history.
Well, clearly the administration is required under the Clean Air Act to review the standards every 5 years. That's something that everyone agrees is part of the act. They don't have to change the standards. The last time the administration tried to look at these standards, President Obama himself said they were going to be so costly that he told EPA to stand down on this. So somewhere there's been a change of heart in the last few years, and now he's given them, at least implicitly right now, a green light to proceed. We think he should tell them to back off again right now.
Okay, so then on the other side of this, what about those who say that treating ozone is the right thing to do? It is a pollutant that is linked to asthma, heart attacks, and it needs to have the same urgency as climate change. How would you react to that?
So there's two ways to answer that, two parts to the answer. First, we don't believe, when we look at the scientific evidence, there's any compelling reason to change these standards right now. We think that the standard where it was set in 2008, which was the most stringent standard ever for ozone, that is protecting the public health with an adequate margin of safety. So that's the first part, that we don't think we need to change the standards. The second thing is we need to help other areas reach those standards right now. We don't need to tighten the standards. We just need to work on meeting those standards that already exist.
So let me bring this back then, about a minute or so that we have left here, to where we started all this. And we've talked about all these things. This has been called the most expensive regulation ever. But in your opinion, are we going to get to that point where we're going to have to choose clean air or cheaper fuel, or are we really on that path now, logically?
Well, the problem with the whole standards, they're very, very costly. As the study, that you cited, that was done for the National Association of Manufacturers already indicates, these are billions and billions of dollars, possibly the most costly standards ever. So we really need, as a public policy, to stop, pause, and think before we go ahead and mandate these on the public.
And we should also point out, too, that if you ever want to see really bad smog, go to Beijing. Go to Tokyo. It's going to be a lot worse there. They need to do a whole lot more work than we need to do right here, but we certainly will do something. Howard, thank you so much for joining us, giving us a little information on this. I'm sure we're going to be in touch again.
Okay, thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. Break, and we're back with those pesky emails from the Internal Revenue Service. Or is it the Infernal Revenue Service? And another possible attack on your personal data. And at 22 minutes after the hour, a decision that could make what happened in Ferguson after the police shooting look like a picnic. And this one's coming from New York City. Stick around. We question everything right here, every day on MidPoint.